Shruti, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm on the road to Christmas.
Yes, we're not too far away. This episode will air, I think, in mid-January. But it is in the late stages of December, and I don't know about you, but my calendar doesn't feel like it's late December.
No, it feels like it's very much the throngs of the middle of the year. But I've just been told it's our team Christmas lunch tomorrow, so that's good news.
Good stuff. Well, I appreciate you joining. You and I had a chance to hang out a little bit in at TLT, the summit in Austin, and
Yep.
had some good conversations. I got a chance to talk to you a little bit about Fuse, and I attended one of your sessions, which we'll talk about in just a second. But before we jump in, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where you do it.
Sure. So I'm Shruti Ajitsaria. I'm a partner at A&O Sherman. I'm based in our London office. The background is I actually was a credit derivatives lawyer for many, many years. And in 2015, I was on a maternity leave, had an idea to open a legal tech space of some description, which we then opened in my firm in 2017.
Awesome. And that is
And that is Fuse. Sorry, you teed me up to say I am the head of Fuse, and I failed you miserably,
no,
Ted. I failed at the first hurdle. Look at that.
it's all good. It's all good. Well, so and that's we're gonna talk about Fuse quite a bit on the episode because I think it's fascinating. I've seen there are a lot of Fuse like concepts out in the legal world, but what you're doing, to my knowledge, is somewhat unique, and I find it fascinating and great for the ecosystem. So why don't you give us a little bit of background on what Fuse is, what's your
Yep.
remit, and a little bit of background.
Yeah, I'll try and skip through, but just sort of to context set, the history is really that when we first started Fuse, nobody was talking about legal tech. I remember really, people talking about defining a vertical. We didn't even really know what legal tech looked like as a word. So was it capital L? Was it all one word? How would we make it look? Those were the sorts of the discussions we were having when we opened. So really, genuinely, it was not a thing. And so what we were trying to do back then was to help the sorts of founders who had been young associates who had quit their job because they found it very frustrating and they had an idea, but they didn't have any ability to break into the legal market, trying to give them a home and trying to understand how we might use their technology to make ourselves more efficient. If you sort of forward to where we are now, the legal tech landscape is entirely different. Actually, it's attracting a lot of investment. The law firms and actually all lawyers, I think, are generally a bit more minded to try new things. There's a bit more of a culture of acceptance. So, really, for us, it's a bit more about figuring out what our lawyers need doing better and trying to find companies in a bit more of a targeted way that will fill the gap.
And how do you identify these companies and vet them?
Yeah. So, every single year we have a process. So the process this year will be kicking off around about the time, hopefully, that this podcast drops. So in mid-January, and anyone who's doing legal tech can apply. The idea is that we look at all of the applications and then we bunch them together and then we show them to partners in the firm. So for example, if we have a whole lot of stuff which is for litigation, we'll show it to a variety of litigation partners and say, well, what of these do you think would be helpful or interesting or useful? Um, and then once we've done that, we have a selection day, which last year actually went across 3 days because we saw quite a few. I think we had over 250 applicants. I think we narrowed it down to around 30 to see over the 3 days. But in that selection process, we have a variety of different voices. So we'll have a client, we'll have someone someone in venture who can help us really assess the business from a bit more of a agnostic standpoint. We'll have someone, a partner in our firm, who would be the person who would support or use the tool. So we have a variety of different perspectives in the room, as well as our often our CTO and our head of legal tech. And from there, we narrow it down even further so that we take in legal tech companies that are solving a problem that we really have, that we, at least from an initial assessment, think that we will be able to use in the firm, or at least pilot, and that we know that there is partner support for.
And so you're looking for horses for courses, right?
Oh, well done, Ted.
I had to get that in there.
Well done, Ted.
So for those that don't know, if you happen to attend Shruti's session at TLTF, there was a very enlightening portion of the presentation where Shruti used a metaphor, horses for courses, and actually called somebody out in the audience because I think this is a British thing, right?
Do you know, okay, can I just be honest, Ted, and tell you, I am not very good at the thing that makes this all the funnier is that I am so bad at sayings. I almost always get them wrong. I have like about a 1%
Hit
success
rate.
rate with sayings. Yeah. And so as it came out of my mouth, I thought, and everyone sort of in the audience in Austin is looking at me like, what's she talking about? I thought, oh God, I've done it again. I've done it wrong, but I don't know quite what I'm trying to say because I don't know the correct, is it, cows for courses? Like, what have I done wrong here? So I thought I'd try and dig myself out of trouble by asking the British people in the room to put their hand up and explain the saying. And the first person that I saw with their hand up was someone who had been in the Fuse cohort. He's one of our founders. And so I was like, oh, that's easy. You can explain it. And they looked at me and they were like, I don't know the saying. I was like, all right, I've definitely messed this up then. But then luckily the person next to him also was another Fuse founder, also British. And he was like, no, it means this. What it really means is you choose the right tool for the right moment effectively, or you choose, it just because something fits a particular moment or a particular problem, it doesn't mean it's going to fit all problems. It's about really understanding the problem you have in front of you and choosing the correct solution. That's sort of that's the meaning behind it. So yes, I'll
Well,
try and stop myself from using sayings in talks in the future.
well, no, I thought it was a great lighthearted moment, and those things, when you get into these, especially legal tech conversations on stage, they can sometimes need a little lightheartedness to re-engage people. So I thought it worked well, and I haven't used the metaphor yet outside of this, but I might, because I feel like when you use equestrian metaphors, you just sound smart and sophisticated.
Well, actually, so we did the one in Austin, and then the week later was in New York doing a talk, sort of a similar panel, and somebody on my panel must have been in the room in Austin because then they said something about, oh, well, it's like horses for courses, isn't it, Shruti? And like the whole thing kind of unfolded again. I was just like, it's the saying that will never leave me, and I'm still not completely sure that it was right in the first place.
Yes, I think that you are that saying is going to be associated with you in the legal tech community for a while. So it's all good. Well, going back to the selection process for these cohort startups, what revenue size are they generally? Are they pre-revenue? Are they post product market fit? What does that look like?
It's actually always been a whole range. I think that's one of the things I love the most about the job is because we're not taking an investment stake and because the metrics aren't really anything other than, is it solving for a problem that we think we have or that our clients have, and are we going to learn something by engaging with them? It's actually quite fluid. So we have, in fact, one of the founders who I think was in the room during the talk would have had something where they, like, pre-product when they started with Fuse. Really, it was just like some wireframes, and a good idea about what they wanted to do. And actually, interestingly, we've now got a license, a global firm-wide license with them, because they got in so early, we were able really to help them to sort of structure what they were going to do along the needs of our lawyers. And really, they'd get people from Germany saying, oh, well, actually, this works differently here, so we need it to look like this. Or you'd get a bunch of people from a particular department saying, well, actually, in my line of work, I need to be able to do X, so could you please make the next bit of functionality look like Y? So I think quite a lot of their product roadmap has come from commentary from our global sort of across departmental feedback, which is great. So on the one hand, it's actually very useful to have very early stage companies. On the other hand, I think all law firms have become slightly more sophisticated around onboarding, what they're prepared to use, how they're supposed to use them, how to run pilots. And so often we also have later stage companies, which is sort of easier to pilot, easier to give a go to. But I mean, this year, for example, we have a company which is very early stage. It's a guy who's based in Sydney, and he has made this amazing product which basically blacklines emails. And it's the sort of thing where if you were going to be taking an investment stake in it, you'd be looking at it thinking, well, this is very, very early stage. But actually, for us, we just want to see, is this a problem people recognize? Do people actually want to blackline their emails? And if they do, is this the way that they would like to interact with the process? So for us, it's been an enormous learning experience. We've really enjoyed having the company, and actually the flexibility to be able to learn about what it is we're missing in our suite of tools and what it is that will help our lawyers is actually very helpful.
What is the difference between red line and black line?
I don't know. That's a great question. Maybe one is the strike through and one is the addition.
I see. Interesting. So, how important is the economic viability of the startup? How closely do you vet based on that criteria?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we have someone with a venture background in our selection day is whilst we're not making an investment stake, what we do want to know is that if we're piloting a company, if we're thinking about using them in the firm, that they are going to be stable and that they have longevity. So it's important from the perspective of, is this company going to survive and do well and flourish? It is important, but from a making it, is the valuation of the company the appropriate one for us? It is kind of irrelevant.
I see.
Um, yeah.
And then how how are you partnering with TLTF if you are? That seems like a great mechanism to source opportunities. Is there a partnership there? Or is that something that's in flight?
Yeah, we're very fortunate in that I've known Zach and Rebecca and the team quite a long while now, and I actually respect them enormously. I think they do a great job. And so for us, it's sort of what I would call an informal sort of partnership in that when we are looking to start the process, I'll always give one of them a call and just sort of say, who have you seen this year? Who do you think is excellent? Who should we be thinking about? We were very lucky to have someone from their team join our selection panel last year, so that was really helpful. And I suppose I would expect to be able to cross-refer him things to look at as well if we came across things that we thought would be of interest to them. So it's a really great relationship.
Yeah, I mean, the concept of having design partners in all of technology. I've spent most of my career in legal tech. It is an essential component in having a successful outcome as a legal tech startup. Really, a bunch of founders sitting in a room with a whiteboard figuring out what the client needs are is not a good process. Having design partners, it sounds like you guys have formalized kind of the intake and management of where you invest time because it is a time investment. Is that accurate?
It's a huge time investment. And one of the things that I think people always ask me, why is Views not taken off in other law firms? I think one of the reasons is it's much less to do with Views and me than it is to do with the fact that our partnership as a whole are generally very collaborative, quite entrepreneurial, very giving. So, if you are the partner sponsor of one of these companies that we've chosen, you're committing to help them pilot something without knowing that there's going to be a good outcome. You're sort of taking a bit of a chance, and when you take it in, you'll often find these partners really helping them along, saying, "Okay, we should speak to my associate here because they'll have a perspective on this," or actually, let's get X number of people to come into your product because they'll be able to help you. It never ceases to amaze me how amazing our partners are from across the globe, actually, at sort of allowing the companies infused to really test their products and to get a sense of what's good. But the one one part of that is opening the door to other people. But the other, which I think is even more impressive still, is that we are quite helpful with our feedback. We're honest. And for lawyers, that's not always the easiest thing to do, is to give like brutal, mean feedback, especially British lawyers. We're also like nice and polite and we like to be kind of like kind. But actually, I think it's really helpful that people understand the process, and they understand that it's actually more helpful to say to somebody, this doesn't work because I really need this, because I would like to have X, because, to be able to have a frank conversation is actually more helpful. And mostly our firm does that very well with the cohort companies in a really very nice, respectful, helpful way.
Do you provide any other support, like incubator style support in terms of kind of business coaching, like feedback on
Yeah.
pricing, like go to market strategy, that sort of stuff?
So it does depend on the company, and as you sort of alluded to at the beginning, where they're up to in their journey. So for many companies that we have in, they have a very set pricing structure. They know exactly what they're doing. They don't really need that kind of thing. For others that are a bit earlier, sometimes they really don't even know what their elevator pitch looks like. So when you join the Fuse program, we spend a bit of time at the very beginning, really getting to know the company, but we help them develop a 5-minute elevator pitch, which will speak to our lawyers and our clients. And you forget sometimes that when you start a business and you have got your team, and you can become quite introverted and quite introspective, and you forget what people actually understand or know about the problem, or how they feel about the problem, or how you can articulate yourself to really land with an audience. And so that, I always think, is one of the most helpful things we do, is the articulation of the problem and your solution and how you might be able to help people. Following on from that, we have office space, which is available in London and San Francisco for people to use if they're in the cohort. So that's great. I love having a busy London Fuse. That's awesome. And then we have the dedicated partner sponsor. So that's each person's part of main point of contact, who is typically within the area in which they operate. And then depending on who the company is and what they do and what their customer base is and what they're trying to achieve, we will also sometimes make client introductions. So oftentimes, if you think about some of the original Fuse cohort companies, their technologies were applicable to us in a law firm, but also to in-house counsel. And so, often people have managed to get themselves quite big contracts with some of our biggest clients, because a partner has said, oh, you've got to see this tool that we've got here. It's amazing. And they've been like, oh, it's amazing. I'd like that. And so then we put them in touch, and then lo and behold, there they are. So we try and really encourage people to share the network, if that makes sense, to everyone's benefit.
Yeah. So, how do you think about tools that might ultimately displace law firm revenue? So, AI is a great example. If you look at the valuations of the Harveys and Lagoras of the world, it's very clear that the only way the math works is for them to take some meaningful piece of the services pie chart, if you will. So, there's about a $1 trillion legal services market. Of that, about 3% is 30 billion is legal tech. And if you look at Harvey's latest round, they're going to need 50 to 80 million dollar IPO in order to make these venture investors happy. So when you're deciding, when you have a product that could potentially displace revenue of law firms, how do you think about that? Is that, or do you?
I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, of course we do. But I actually think the question is somewhat misplaced in the nicest way, because it suggests that law firm revenues are coming from static sources, and it's kind of sort of saying, here's the train that's moving in one direction, but here's the sort of piece of chewing gum that got left behind, and that's going to stay there. It's not quite right. Actually, as clients progress and they are able to do different things using different tools, or we are able to do different things using different tools, to me, the sort of natural progression is that the work type will also change. So it might be the case that we at the moment are focused on highly complex multi-jurisdictional work. Actually, using a Harvey type tool might open up different revenue streams for us. So, I feel like this kind of idea of um, always categorizing law firm revenues as being displaced by legal tech, it's not like necessarily the right perspective. I think what you have to sort of be ready for is the shifting sands. But the shifting sands are not just negative, they also provide a huge opportunity for us and for everyone, frankly, to look at a different client base, look at different ways of working, look at different types of work that we could be doing. And actually, I don't know, if I draw on my own experience, just the basics of doing derivatives transactions, we part of my job when I did derivatives was to create a book of standard definitions, which kind of had like the Lego pieces of a contract. They were each sort of each sort of definition was a sort of a different Lego brick, but it meant that once you had published the actual booklet, the complexity of the house that you could build with the Lego was far greater than if you didn't have any Lego and you were just trying to do it out of pieces of, I don't know, paper with scissors. Do you see what I mean? Like once, and I wonder whether actually the use of Harvey and Legora and, all the other tools that you mentioned, whether the work itself will change, whether the types of deals that are done will change and lead to more complex documents, or in some cases, more standard documents. And so I think, as I say, I think it's about recognizing that the sands are shifting and being ready for that. And like honestly, having opened Fuse in 2017 and being a firm that has really always embraced legal tech, AI, and everything else, I think we are sort of as well positioned to do it as anyone, if not really the best.
Yeah, and I think that's the right way to look at it. So it's less about, it's not Harvey or Legora that's displacing the legal work. It's the underlying technology, right? It's AI. And whether it's them or some other AI tool or something that the GCs build, the work that's at risk is at risk because of the technology. And who fills that gap is really irrelevant. I think that law firms need to recognize what is what where they're going to play and where revenue is defensible and where it's not, and focusing on what's defensible and what makes sense for them to deliver in this new tech enabled world. So I completely agree with you. I don't get hung up on, if I were sitting on a law firm XCOM, I wouldn't get hung up on, hey, is this tool or that tool going to displace our revenue? I would look at, hey, what is the underlying tech going to do to the underlying economics of this firm, and how do we adapt to that?
Yeah, and where's the new opportunities?
Right. Exactly. So with Fuse, do you have, with as part of these cohorts, do you have themes for
Mm.
incoming, where, hey, we're going to do a AI cohort, or, a e-discovery cohort, or what does that look like?
Yeah, we do have themes. The themes are slightly different actually. So when we first started Fuse, the idea was entirely related to finding legal tech companies that would help us work better. I suppose because of my derivatives background, I was always sort of tangentially interested in what my derivatives colleagues in the various different financial institutions were doing, and quite a lot of them were moving into digital assets. And so I was sort of interested to know a bit more about that. And sort of had a very interesting conversation one day with someone who said, wouldn't it be great if you could use Fuse as a vehicle to help your lawyers to come on this learning journey with us whilst we're doing it in all these areas of emerging sort of legal work. So, for example, when the world's first blockchain bond was issued, that was done using a company that had been in Fuse, and we were able to advise on it. And the reason why it was sort of obvious that we would be the advisor is because we'd spent quite a lot of time with the provider of the technology. So we actually understood what the difference was between a piece of paper and a digital bond. And so I think that kind of in-depth, sort of behind the scenes experience really helps you to sort of finesse your understanding of the law and like practically what's going on, so you can give legal advice on the sort of practical realities of what is happening. And so over the years, we have done a thematic cohort as well, which is done by virtue of a client nomination. So we ask a small number of clients of the firm to nominate into the theme, and then we choose the companies based on those nominations that we think will teach us new things, or are doing really cutting edge work, or are looking at themes which are of interest to our clients, or we think they might want to know about. So that cohort this year had a theme it was technically called transformation and resilience. In my head, it was called Thrive in 25. not a saying, but snappy nonetheless. And we had a really interesting variety of different types of company in that. So some things looking at sustainability, one looking at cyber, something looking at tokenization, one which was focused on stablecoin clearing. So very different, a different variety.
Do you ever take head to head, like competitive offerings and evaluate them?
Yes, we have done that. So in the legal tech space, I see my job as being making sure that we find the best tools for our lawyers. Really, kind of, I try really hard to support the cohort members that we have, but we every so often have to do an evaluation and ask ourselves, is this really still the best in the market? And so we have on occasion tested one or two or three against one another. And again, like the last time we did it, I think we had something like 100 of our lawyers testing three different tools that sort of fell within the same overarching bucket. And we took feedback, both qualitative and quantitative, from those testers and made a decision based on the feedback that we got. So what I like about that process is when I at least was in this firm, those sorts of decisions weren't really being made by the lawyers. They were being made by perhaps a mixture of someone in the IT team and someone in procurement and, perhaps like a conversation with like one or two lawyers who were like maybe partners who didn't actually do the work that was being tested. And I feel like this is like a much more sort of interesting way of making those selections, which is just genuinely to ask the users. And it's quite difficult to organize, which is why I think more people don't do it. It's quite time consuming. It's quite a big, it's sort of a heavy lift, but I think it's a really good way of doing things. It's a really good discipline.
Well, that leads me into my next question, which is how do you measure success? Like the firm is making a significant investment. Is it purely qualitative? Like, hey, you know what? We found these good tools and they're great. Or do you have like quantitative KPIs?
Yeah, so the thing, actually, when I first started Views, I said to the senior partner then with whom we kind of put the whole thing together, this will never work if I have preset KPIs because we don't really know what's around the corner. And if I'm always chasing the thing that you thought last year, at the beginning of last year, that I ought to be chasing, will never be future looking or future, sort of entrepreneurial or forward thinking enough. Um, and so there are some things that I obviously know I should be doing. And one of them, interestingly, is using Fuse to really help our clients in a differentiated way. And so when we first opened in 2017, the idea really was this would be a place in which our lawyers could learn. What I don't think we ever really anticipated was the amount of client interest that we would have and how sustained that client interest would be. Um, and one of the things that I've like really enjoyed the most is knowing that clients are really interested in who we choose. They're really interested in hearing our opinions on the legal tech that we've brought in. Often the legal tech in which we have no stake, no particular, no oh no, I was gonna Ted, I'm stuck. What's the saying? No axe to grind. It's not that, it's something else. There's another saying, but no vested interest. Um and they just want to like hear an agnostic perspective, or they want to hear about the market. What are we seeing in the market? What have we seen that does XYZ? So actually the client interactions on legal tech have been really enormously interesting, as have the client sort of interactions on the client nominated theme, because for the client nominated theme it gives us an opportunity every year really to go to big clients of the firm and say, well, what are you interested in? What are the big topics that we ought to be looking at? What are you investing in? Who are you partnering with? What will you be piloting? What will you be focused on this year? And that's actually part of how we come up with the theme every year, is through those discussions, often with the strategic venture head or the head of fintech or the head of innovation or the head of digital assets or whoever it might be, a variety of different clients, and sort of hearing what's going on in the market, not from lawyers, but from the people whose job it is within those institutions to spot the trends and know what the firm is going to be looking at down the road.
So do you feel that Fuse is contributing to better client retention?
Yeah, I think it's definitely contributing to strengthening client relationships in an entirely differentiated way. because what we're not doing is waiting for a quote to come in for a particular matter, but what we are being is a strategic partner, and what we are being is a really genuinely useful sounding board. And I think that's the thing that I've most enjoyed actually about my role, because when I did credit derivatives, I remember kind of like year after year in my appraisal, I'd get this sort of feedback, which was, oh, wouldn't it be great if you were, you can do the work, but wouldn't it be great if you were a strategic partner to the client? And I used to sort of scratch my head a bit and be like, I don't really understand what that means. Like, I'm a credit derivatives lawyer. What does that mean? Like, I'm not going to make up, I don't know, JP Morgan's strategy, am I? That's silly. So what is it you exactly expect of me? And I could never quite figure out how to be that sounding board or how to provide that support. And I think it's actually very difficult as a lawyer to be a strategic partner to a client. I actually think it's a lot harder done than said. But what has been amazing about this role is legal tech is so front of mind to so many in-house counsel that you do get to provide that strategic support. You do get to be a trusted voice. You do get to have them use you as a sounding board in a way that when they just want sort of transactional on deal advice, it isn't the same relationship at all. So I mean, having experienced both and the sort of strength and quality of both relationships, I'd say this has been amazing for me.
We just participated with Concilio in their innovation labs that they had last week in Miami. It was our first time participating, and it's a similar strategy there. They essentially bring new innovative legal tech companies and share their story and their capabilities with their clients. And I did not attend. Adam, who you met, and somebody else from the team went, and just there was such a high level of engagement that we were thoroughly impressed with just how, to your point, how much clients are interested in this sort of thing.
Do you mean Adam, who had the fabulous trainers?
Exactly, exactly. The Infodash Jordans. What's funny is, yeah, my wife and kids want these Jordans now too, and I'm like, look, you're not in our ICP, so, but I am buying my wife some. My kids will trash
For
them.
Christmas. Are you going to buy some for what kind of amazing present giver are you?
I know, but it's better than a vacuum cleaner, right? I might get slapped if I do that,
Yes,
but
Ted, I think we can all agree that a vacuum cleaner would be a bad idea. I'm just looking at my own trainers. I've got a pretty good pair of trainers on, but they're not they're not personalized Jordans. So
well, maybe we'll get you a pair. Yeah, they're bright green. We had the idea. It was actually Mary O'Connell from Goodwin,
mm.
who I saw her Goodwin Jordans, and I was like, they were a little bit different, but I hit her up on LinkedIn. I was like, where did you get those? Because those are awesome. And then we bought them for the whole team at Ilticon last year. We had 8 people, and I can't tell you how many people stopped because, again, they're kind of bright green. They stand out,
Mm.
and you can't buy them this color. And they were a great conversation piece. So it's good
Well,
marketing fodder.
this is clearly I need a pair of Ajitsaria Jordans is what I've taken from this conversation. So you'll have to you'll have to pass on Mary's link to me so that I can do the same.
There you go. Okay, we can work that out. Um, Let me ask you a question. Why do you not take equity? What's the strategy there? Because you're investing
Um,
time.
yeah. So I think you alluded earlier to the fact that we will sometimes compare different companies
Mm.
and switch in and out. And I suppose when we first started, really what I had in mind was that we would be very purist about how we make the decisions. And over time, there are some things where I thought, oh gosh, we really should have taken a stake in that and we haven't done. Um, but I think the thing that not having an equity stake in some of the fused companies has allowed us to do is to genuinely take an agnostic perspective on who is the right fit for this firm at this moment without any sort of sense of pull or we maybe we should do this without anything sort of muddying that water. You can make a real assessment about what the right thing is to use, what is the correct horse for the course, if you like, Ted.
I do like. I do like. Well, and that makes a lot of sense. So, the fact that you don't take equity allows you to communicate to your clients in a very objective way. Maintaining that level of objectivity is key, and it gives you flexibility in that you may not select a startup based on an economic outcome and rather on the potential capabilities that they can deliver to the firm.
And that's not to say, it is perfectly possible, lots of others do it. It's perfectly possible to take a stake in something, with the kind of intention of building a strategic partnership. But if it's not the right company for your firm or institution to switch out with, I think that is completely, it's quite normal, I think, for some. But I suppose from when I started this, I wanted to do it without the additional complexity that might bring, and I wanted to do it in a way that felt sort of an easier way to do it. And actually, just you have to remember again, in 2017, absolutely nobody was doing this. And so every layer of complexity that you added made it slightly harder for people to understand what we were doing and why. And so actually this just felt cleaner, neater, easier, simpler.
So there's a lot of, I'm sure you've seen it on LinkedIn. You're a busy person, so maybe I don't know how closely you've been following the chatter around vibe coding. And there is, have you seen, like Jamie
No, do you know what
Tao?
I tell you? No, I'll tell you who talks to me about vibe coding, funnily enough, is my 10-year-old. At the same time as he keeps sort of pestering me for a book on vibe coding, and also the other thing he wants me to get is something for his Raspberry Pi. You've just reminded me.
Interesting. Yeah. I have not, I didn't even realize Raspberry Pis were still around, but that's,
Oh no. Well, the only reason he knows that they're still around is because I, in my wisdom, thought it would be a nice birthday present for him, but I obviously bought the wrong thing and haven't bought the correct starter kit or something. Almost every day met with coming home from work but mummy, have you ordered my correct starter kit yet? No, not today. Why don't you wait until next Christmas?
they used to be pretty cheap.
This year you're getting a vacuum cleaner, my darling.
Oh, that's great. What, I mean, yeah, I mean, Raspberry Pis used to be pretty cheap, but,
No, but they're quite a cool thing for a kid to do.
oh,
I think it's
totally.
quite a cool thing for a kid to learn about. It's also about, sorry, total aside, but it's all very interesting to think about what children need to learn today. But actually, in terms of providing them with a fundamental base knowledge and just really giving them something that they can use as a base and learn from and expand from, which is slightly differentiated to what everyone else in their year is doing, I actually think it's still quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, with vibe coding, the reality is that while it's really neat to demonstrate that, these aren't, you're not going to be able to take the output of an exercise like that and roll it across firm wide. They're not it's not a these aren't production ready applications, and it's going to be quite some time before AI is in a place where it can do that. So we have been doing vibe coding here at Infodash as well. And I had a post on LinkedIn where I outlined our process. And the reality is, you very much need a human in the loop that has engineering chops. It's not, you can't go take a vibe coded app, slam it in production, and scale it. That's true almost all the time at this point. But how is vibe coding affected your process? In other words, are you seeing founders with a pitch deck and a vibe coded prototype or not?
No, not yet, but our application process is kind of an interesting point, really. Our application process will open this January, and so it will be interesting to see what comes out of that. The last time we did the application rounds, it was last year, January, and so we didn't see anything that referred to vibe coding, but I don't, why would we have done it? Would have been before its time, if you like. Um, so no, not we haven't done yet, but I'll look out and I'll drop you an email after sometime around mid-January to let you know. It'll be interesting to see what comes out. I'm genuinely really interested to see how much everything has moved on since last year, because last year it was still quite a lot of, oh, we're using Gen AI for, but not very well thought out, some of them, quite overambitious, quite a lot that all sort of fell within the bucket of feels the same as Harvey, but like quite a bit later. So difficult bucket, I would say. And so, yeah, I'd be really interested to see what comes out this year and how, what the themes are that come out. So yeah, I'll have a much better perspective on this once we've had the applications in.
Yeah,
And I
please.
also look forward to listening to your podcast with Jamie.
Oh, yes, that should be, I would say, maybe 2 weeks after this releases, so I'm guessing late January. Yeah, it's been amazing what he's been able to do, and, it's really created a groundswell of interest in the
I'm going to
process.
live look him up on LinkedIn. It's a very, as you can see, I can't actually see properly because I'm so old that my eyes don't work. But I'm going to look him up right now so that I can remember it.
TSO is, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, like General Tao's chicken. So yeah, you'll have to
Got
look
him.
at some of his posts, like, I mean, completely viral, like thousands of likes, like hundreds of comments. If I had to guess, he's probably had 250,000 or 500,000 impressions. And it's been amazing what he's been able to do. But again, it's still prototype phase. I mean, nobody that I know who's credible is saying, "Hey, take this vibe coded app and roll it out across your firm." There's a ton of technical debt. Typically, there's different. AI is still in its infancy in terms of what it's able to deliver through vibe coding.
Right. Well, I'm going to. I'm look forward. That will be my evening's job. I look forward.
There you go. How does the firm evaluate? And I was teeing you up for this question, which is like enterprise ready. Like when you look at where a startup is and your ability, like if somebody were to come to you with a pitch deck and a vibe coded prototype, how how would you get that in front of your lawyers because it's not production ready? Like where do they need to be in their technical maturity for this to work?
Yeah, we have. I mean, it will depend on what they are, what the application is looking to do, what information it needs access to, who would use it for what purpose. We have whole teams. So anytime we onboard any form of technology, we have in-house legal working hand in hand with our IT team, working hand in hand with our procurement team. We have an AI governance structure. There's a lot of different pieces of the red tape puzzle that have to be gotten through before we will use anything in this firm. And as I say, there's not really, I I really do hope the saying is right, but it is horses for courses. If what you are looking to do accesses very, very sensitive information and will be used for XYZ type of work. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
The assessment, the risk assessment is maybe slightly different to, I don't know, read the internet and give me a summary of what's happening in this particular area of interest. Do you see what I mean? So we look at what the use case is, we look at all of the factors going into it, and then we make appropriate recommendations about what is required.
All right, we're almost out of time, but I did want to bounce one last thing off of you. The last time you and I spoke, you said something that was really interesting, and you talked about moving beyond waiting for social proof to being the social proof, which social proof is so I say this all the time, like law firms don't buy tech, they buy social proof. So how have you been able to make that jump from waiting for it to being it?
I mean, that was the whole premise of Views, really. The whole premise of Views, and again, when we opened it, we were so fortunate in that we were able to do it with a mindset of being entrepreneurial and trying things for the first time. Being the first firm of our size to open a legal tech incubator, it was quite freeing really because there was no model to follow, there was no expectations of success, and so it meant we could do whatever we wanted. And what we wanted was to experiment and genuinely find horses for courses, find technology tools that were going to help our lawyers. And the the facts were it was a very small team, so there wasn't time for like a big production around it. We just had to kind of hustle the way you would do if you were a startup. Do you know what I mean? And just try and sort of move through the various different stages as best you could. And what that enabled us to do was to try some really amazing things really early on. Um, Without worrying about what everybody else was doing because everybody else was basically doing nothing. And because we started in that way, we've kind of continued in that way. We don't worry about what others are doing. We get to worry about what we're doing, which is enormously freeing, I have to say. But I think the thing that really holds it all together is the appetite of our partners globally to support the initiatives that we have, and the sort of the mindset that I'm going to give this a go, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't really matter, but if it does work, that's going to be brilliant, and I'm going to support it, and I'm going to try my best for it. And for that, I am enormously grateful that I'm at a firm full of brilliant people who will give up their time and energy, and sometimes political capital, to try things that they don't know will be a success. And I don't think that would be true of everywhere, but it is certainly true of A&O Sherman. And genuinely, I think that has really played the most enormous part in Fuse's longevity and success.
That's awesome. And has this is a complete pivot here. Have you heard of 6-7 that kids say? Have you heard this? Are your kids of that age where?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but I'm going to show you what I just most recently bought from Amazon. If I can access I seriously cannot see very well, but my most recent order from Amazon was hilariously this. Hang on, let's just get it up for you. Oh, you can't see it, can you? It's a mug. It's an amazing mug.
Oh yeah.
It says, oh, there you go.
Oh yeah.
It's a Christmas mug. It's a Christmas 6-7 mug.
Well, so the reason I ask is we're going to
How dare you suggest I'm not cool enough to have heard of 6-7?
I didn't know if it was a UK thing. I know it's rampant here in the US, and I'm frankly really tired of it. But because my kids, every time, I can't imagine what poor school teachers are dealing with. But my goal, we're going to make Horses for Courses as big as 6-7. We're going to do that. Horses for Courses is going to be the 6-7 in legal tech.
It's going to be the 6-7 of 2026. My kid is going to come home with a letter from the headmaster saying the children are no longer allowed to say horses for courses because it's becoming disruptive in the classroom. I can't wait.
Oh, we're going to do it. Okay, before we wrap up, tell how do folks find out more about Fuse and the work that you're doing there?
So, as I say, this podcast will launch at the most perfectly timed time. If you are a legal tech startup or scale up, or you're interested in working with A&O Sherman, or interested in accessing our clients and understanding the problems that we or they have, there will be an application process which will be open for about 3 weeks, probably from mid-January onwards. And so you can either email me or anyone in the team, or look on the A&O Sherman website for further details.
Awesome. Well, it has been great getting to know you through this process, and I've really enjoyed hearing and learning about Fuse, and I'm sure our audience is as well. So thank you, and have a great holiday.
And to you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Take care. Thanks for listening to Legal Innovation Spotlight. If you found value in this chat, hit the subscribe button to be notified when we release new episodes. We'd also really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate us and leave us a review wherever you're listening right now. Your feedback helps us provide you with top-notch content.